everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Now read out by Disney, or from Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today I have for you issues 36 to 50. Today we finish the Kotor comics. Up next we will have the 5-issue series Kotor War, and 2 short stories. And then after that, we move on to the video game Knights of the Old Republic. So, I hope you're all excited for that. But today, we have issues 36 to 50 to talk about. I'm not even going to get really into spoilers. Rest assured that all lingering plot threads are taken care of, besides, of course, the war, because that's more of Revan's story, though, of course, I'm sure they'll get into that a bit, into the in the KOTOR war things. Overall, this series, all 50 issues, was absolutely fantastic. This series is well worth your time. I still stand by my comment when I reviewed Star Wars Redemption, which focused on Eula Quildroma and his redemption, that issues-wise, that is probably my favorite story so far. Because it's really emotional to me. I think it's really heartwarming. But I think as a series, I think so far, perhaps the Republic comics will change that. Maybe Dark Times. I don't know. I really like Legacy, but I can say, at least right now, my favorite comic book series as a whole, because I thought, the Tales of the Jedi was fun and stuff, but it's not my favorite. But this entire 50-issue run was incredible. Zane Garrick is such a fun character, and I love that he's not perfect. I love that he's, not this super smart tactician, which I kind of feel like Revan is. People always tend to say, oh, Revan could beat Darth Vader in a fight. I don't know about that. I think he's a very tactical guy. I think he's a very intelligent guy. I don't know if he's as good on one-on-one combat. I know people refer to the games to that, but in the Lucasfilm hierarchy, at least of old, it used to always be the events in video games usually happen, but usually not the way you played them. So I usually don't use gameplay as an example for why someone's able to do something. The same reason I don't listen to people who use arguments from gameplay of The Force Unleashed for what Gallagher can do. I would refer to the novel for what he could do. But anyway, Zane Garrick, Carrick, however you say his name. I say Garrick? Carrick. The things always seems to happen around him, right? But he's decent with a lightsaber, but he's no master, and he's no Malik, he's no Revan. There's so many people who are better than him in a lot of ways, but he has heart. Griff, the seemingly criminal with a heart of gold, kind of like Han Solo, but he's the comic relief, but he also, you can clearly tell he cares about Zane, and even from the very beginning, they already have an established relationship that we get introduced to, but they just over time become better and better friends. And then of course I'm a softie, romance things happen. I'm happy about that because I'm a softie. I mean, all of Rogue Squadron with Myrax and Cornhorn, I was like, because I'm stupid. Stuff. There are some revelations made with certain Mandalorians. Yeah. That's pretty much all I'm going to say. You need to read these comics. It's really worth your time. It's great. If you have not read issues 36 to 50 yet, I'm not going to tell you, just finish it. You'll enjoy your time. I promise you. If you've been enjoying the series so far, you'll enjoy the rest of it. I'm going to get into spoilers now, so unless you either don't care about spoilers, are a veteran, or whatever else, time for you to leave. Otherwise, I'm going to get into it. Let's go. Issue 36, Nunk, and the Raft Syndicate. So I think these were 2 issues. These are just fun little issues. They are every issue after issue 35, where the initial plot of Zane being accused of murder is kind of over with. Each issue has some thread that is continuity-wise important to later issues. However, as a whole, the main story of it is just like this little fun one-off. It is connected to larger things, like larger things are within it, but it's, a little one-off sort of tale. With this big giant elephant-looking guy. I forget what the aliens' names are. I'm not that big of a nerd. Not that there's anything wrong with being that big of a nerd. I just have not invested that much time to remember every single alien race's name on the spot. But you have this guy. He's being, over the top, like cartoon villain funny, and it's fun. It's fun to watch, and he gets his comeuppance, and there are stuff in the background going on that leads to future storylines down the road. Issue 38. We get to sorry, that was issue 36 and 37 basically. That's all that happened. Issue 38, there's a ship in need. The first thing I'll say about this also, with, I don't know if this was one issue. No, yeah, I think it was one issue. The art in issue 38 is so unnerving. It's the only word I can use, I think. It's not scary. But, like, you have the usual art that you have for this series, and then you have this one. And I don't know how to really describe it, because I'm not an art person. But I felt unnerved just by the art. It was, I don't know how to I was like, what's going on? And, this is the spoiler section, so you probably already know. But there's this whole, murder mystery plot. Well, at first you don't know it's a murder, but like there are these people who have died of suffocation by being strangled, but there's no one alive except for this little tiny twerp on this ship, and he looks all scared and all of that. But then you find out that he's force sensitive, and he's like this serial killer. And there's even, if you have like the collections of these, there are little like in between comics, you'll have like these like little headlines which are like fake like newspaper articles, and he's been referenced pretty early on with this like murderer that's killing people, but like having the wrong alien because they don't know who's able to do this. And it's this little guy who has the force, and he like keeps choking people to death. And I don't know, everything about it was just like pretty creepy, and it was a fun issue though. I enjoyed it. Issue 39, big tone change. It's again they're at this there's this fighting arena where people are fighting to the death and stuff. That's going to lead to really big story plots, even though the main story itself isn't that important to the overall. It's again another like contained story. However, surrounding it is stories that are going to wrap up near the end of the series. So, issue 40, Jeriel has a nightmare vision, and that was interesting. Again, this leads into future stuff of like trying to tease you. She's force sensitive, all of that. However, and we'll get to that. We basically have like another type of like Griff's rival, the blue guy that kind of has popped up here and there. He popped up in like issue 0. He popped up again during when they were underneath Terrace's underground. He's here again, and this will be the last time that we see Griff's like rival. Issue 1, we learn the big thing we learn in this issue. Everything kind of gets settled. The story that was taking place gets resolved, and the blue guy dies. We learn about the main antagonists of the rest of the issues. And we learn that Jeriel used to be a slaver. That's a big thing we learn in that one. Then we get to issue 42. We got introduced to Chantique in the last one. Chantique, she's a Zeltron that's really red. That really confused me at first, because both Zeltrons that we meet in this series are really red, and I'm used to Zeltrons being pink, so I was a bit confused by that. At first I was like, are they Sith? Like, I was confused. But no, they're just Zeltrons that just happen to be more red. Maybe somebody can explain that in the comics, why there are some... I mean, I guess different skin colors in every race, right? Like, I'm brown, some people are white, some people are black. Maybe it's just how it is on Zeltros. You have some pink people, you have some red people. I don't know. Issue 42. This issue is a big portion of it is flashbacks to what kind of began the revanchist movement. Um, but basically, the Cathar homeworld, the Cathar, which were such an important race that they were in, Dawn of the Jedi and they were in Tales of the Jedi, and we had the whole thing with redemption with the Cathar lady trying to get revenge on Ulic Quodroma. Well, in this issue, Revan, although I don't know if that was his name at that point, Malik, other Jedi followed them to the planet Cathar. Revan, that's the only thing I know him as, so that's what I'm gonna call him. He picks up a mask, a Mandalorian mask, and every Jedi has this force vision of something that happened in the past. Cassius Fett going to exterminate, these Cathar people because the Mandalorians blame the Cathar people for their failure with the Jedi, even though I don't know how much of their fault it was. I mean, there was like one Cathar who joined their side and lost. But okay. Anyway, one Mandalorian female was like, look, we've won. There's no need to do this. And he's like, if you feel that way, you can die with them. And so they both die. And so Revan, he picks up this mask and he says, until, there is justice, I will don this mask. And that's the famous mask we always see Revan wear. And so that entire issue is just super fan servicey, but in a good way. And I really enjoyed it. Also in that issue, I think in present day, we have Malik versus Roland. Anyway, so Malik gets really upset because Roland is being very antagonistic. And so they get into a fight, and you just see the hate and rage coming out of Malik. And I just really like that because it helps build his character. Because let's be honest here, the Knights of the Old Republic game, Malik just comes off as this stereotypical bad guy. Lots of, ha ha ha, I'm evil for the sake of being evil. Ha ha, I'm evil. And you're like, okay. Revan's a more interesting character, but sure, you go ahead and do your thing, Malik. But here, I mean, I'm sure I'll still feel that way when I play the game, but at least there's more nuance to his character now. Like, I got to know him before he turns bad, right? So there's a bit of a build up to that. And I like the even from the very beginning, like, he wasn't always, like, evil, but there's definitely, he likes to go on the offensive more. Kind of like, Anakin's always been more of the, go into the fray sort of guy. And he's always, been for the Revan movement and always thought it was justified and saw no issue with it. Also, even just the little things with him hitting on Jeriel, like, he clearly does not give a crap about the Jedi's perceptions of relationships, which is fine because the Jedi's perception of relationships back then was retarded anyway. But it's just interesting to note, how he doesn't care about it and how it just kind of, shows how his character goes from one way to this other side. Then we get to issue 43, slaves and Chantique, basically. This is basically where we get to learn about a slaver that had picked up Jeriel, and basically that's it. I don't want to, there's more I could say, I guess, but I also don't feel like I have enough to say, so I'm just going to move to issue 44. Slaves rescued, and that's what happens. They save the slaves that were on the ship from the previous issue, and Roland lives. Look, I'm just going to get to it. If you're in the spoiler section, you're in the spoiler section. Roland, this whole time, since, like, Flashpoint, since after Flashpoint, has been Demigul. Demigul has really been Roland this whole time, and he's been in a coma. I may even spoil this in a previous one and forgot. But yes, That is the case. That is that. So Demigol is the one traveling with our heroes. Roland wakes up. Issue 45. Issue 45 is, you know those type of stories where like some guy who's not in prison purposely puts himself in prison to get people out or something. That's kind of what's happening here, except that they lose communication with Zane, so he's stuck here. This is where we get to learn more about the slave organization called Crucible. And that has actually existed for 2,000 years. 2,000 years of oppression and slavery, because there was a Sith Lord who wanted to, carve his army into a formidable force. And so he had these slaves, and he had them fight to death till they were formidable warriors. But eventually the Sith Empire died off, right? They left. And the slavery didn't stop, though. It just became kind of like tradition without the purpose that it was originally intended for. And there's this Kalamasi there, who is fighting and but with the Kamasi, they have like this long memory, right? So this Kamasi can like see every Kamasi that's ever been brought there and feel their pain and suffering, and he shares that with Zane. And I don't know if it's in this issue or not, but basically, if it's on this issue, it's in the next one. Zane ends up being forced to fight the Kamasi, and he doesn't want to kill him, and the Kamasi doesn't want to kill him either, and he kills himself. Or, if that's not what happens, I might be getting it wrong. They fight, and just a natural reflex, Zane just doesn't put any dagger on him or anything, but simply turns the blade around, and it hits the Kamasi. But the Kamasi is not mad at him, and Zane just feels distraught over that, because if you realize during this, all the way up to issue 45 or 46, whenever this happens, Zane hasn't killed a single person. He didn't kill any of his masters who betrayed him. He only ever sliced down robots and stuff, but he actively didn't kill anyone. So when he had to do that, that was a lot for him. And by issue 46, we learn more about Jeriel's past through Shantique, though of course it's her warped, because it's from her perspective. But we do get some insights that are true amongst the bias. And I already mentioned the Crucible was created by the Sith. I was right, this happened in issue 46, so I'm sorry for mentioning it early. The Kamasi dies. Issue 47, Dr. Demigol. I think pretty much this is where we just get Dr. Demigol's entire backstory, I believe. If it's not there, then it's a bit later. But, no, I think it's that one. Issue 48, issue 48 is where we get Demigol's backstory. Issue 47, I honestly don't remember. I'm so sorry. But basically, issues 47 to 50 are one continuous story, so it kind of blends together. Issue 48, we have the Demigol's backstory, and then we also have, what I really liked is that there's a part where Roland, I don't know if this is when he's fighting Demigol or if that happens later, but I just like that Roland mentions how children are sacred to the Manadad, to the Mandalorians. It just it helps build out their culture and shows where their lines are drawn and stuff. Like, they don't harm kids, or at least they shouldn't be. And I don't know, I find Mandalorian culture really fascinating. I know Karen Travis had a big hard-on for them, but I mean, I can understand why. They're really interesting. I mean, what do you have? You have the Jedi and the Sith. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then you have all of the Republic when you get to the prequel era with, Sidious's, 4D chess that he's playing, right? What do you have in the originals? You have Darth Vader, you have Sidious, and Luke Skywalker. That's like the most interesting parts. And then, Han Solo's development to becoming, more of a caring friend person, whatever. But other like races and stuff, some of them are like they're okay, but like where's the like really interesting history and lore and culture? You have the Wookiees, I guess, but the Mandalorians, they fought a lot with the Jedi and stuff, and they have a lot of that interesting stuff. So I don't really hold that against Karen Travis. I know a lot of people were upset with the way some things were handled in like Legacy of the Force and stuff, but I don't know. I've never really had an issue with anything relating to Mandalorians, so I don't know. That's just me. Um, we get to learn Zane spending him and Griff's money with making a base, and I also like that essentially Zane in this series, at least by the end, he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The early on, at least, later on, Spider-Man's like one of the hardest hitting Avengers, right? At least in the comics, he's really not that right now in the MCU. But you have the Avengers doing the big boy stuff. That's Revan and Malik right now fighting the Mandalorians on a whole large scale war conflict. But with him, he's like, I'm gonna protect the little people. All the Jedi are focused on the bigger things going on in the galaxy, like the big picture. But people forget about the little guy. So what this kind of is, and I just like that. Also, by the end, we find out that freaking Demogorgon got Exar Kun's lightsaber, which is so interesting that he's the only Sith that I know of to have a double-bladed lightsaber that's still like the light side colors. I guess Anakin used a blue lightsaber at the end of Episode 3, but that's because it's what he had on him. I don't know. Exar Kun, while he's a fun villain, he's also very straightforward. I'm bad sort of guy. Like I don't think he really thinks what he's doing is good, And so you would think, being that kind of cartoonishly evil, he would get a red-bladed lightsaber, but he doesn't. So, but we do get to see that again, which is cool. I love the continuity with these last 4 issues. This entire series has been pretty connected to everything else. But what I really like is, because in the Knights of the Old Republic game, you have references, um, to the previous comics and stuff, but it's not that connected to it's kind of its own separate thing. This actually brings in storylines and characters that were around during the time of like Yuli Quadroma and stuff, and I don't know, I really like that. It makes the payoff of having read those a lot better. That's what I love about continuity, right? Because you don't need continuity if you're never going to reference it again. But if you have stuff from the past actually influence the future, and future stuff actually enhance the past stuff, it makes everything just feel glued together and connected. The Darth Plagueis novel makes so much of Episode 1 so much better, so much more intriguing. Just makes the entire experience phenomenal. The entire background, like, you would think politics is boring, right? But the politics in the prequels is done in such a way to where doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you lean in real life, it's not like that. And I hate that when fiction tries to like bash it into your head with real life politics and fake politics. Like, why? Like Supergirl, for example. Supergirl, in her universe, there's a female president. Trump was never president. And this doesn't matter what side of the aisle you land on with all that. I don't care. I don't care whether you like Biden, you hate Trump, or you love Trump, you hate Biden, or you hate both of them. I don't care. The point of the matter is, in that universe, Trump was never president. The illegals on the border and stuff, that's not an issue. The issues with actual aliens coming into the world. And yet they still find a way to make a wall joke. But they did that just to make a real life political thing out of it. Like, you knew you were going to piss people off, and you knew you were just going to make other people be weirded out by it. Like, at least have things make sense in the context of your own world. You can talk about racism, you can talk about all that, but have it make sense in the context of the world that is inhabited, right? So with racism in Star Wars, it's usually with other aliens, which would be speciesism, but right? Because George Lucas already established that no one really cares about the color of your skin in his universe, because that's how he views it should be. You just don't care. Right? But what I appreciate is that the politics in it is done in such a way that it's interesting and intriguing, and doesn't have anything to do with real life. It's stuff that you can relate to real life, and it's stuff that is interesting, and could have discussions about real life. But it's nothing in there like trying to be force fed down your throat. It's Game of Thrones backstabbing left and right and stuff like that, and power plays, and I like that. What was I originally talking about? I don't know what I was originally talking about. I had a point. I swear to God, I had a point. I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna move forward. Issue 49. Um, Zane, him and Griff have a discussion on kind of the coincidences, the stuff that has happened during this entire comic book run, and Zane's relationship to the Force. And I found that really interesting. Like, how a balance is always kind of found when he's around. Like, he's not the greatest Jedi, but things tend to kind of work out in the end for Zane. It's a really interesting discussion. And I really like it. And I really like Chris' take on it. Like, your master might have thought you were stupid or that you had a disability or something, but I see that as like an ace in the hole. I know how to play my cards right, or something like that. Paraphrasing. And I love their friendship. Then we have Shantique versus Jeriel, and that's kind of the end of issue 49. Issue 50, where everything just kind of culminates together, and we get the end of the storyline. We learn that Demigol is actually Chantique's father, which is why she's the only one that actually used the Force. We find out that while Jeriel might be Force sensitive, she is not particularly attuned to the Force, because Exar Kun's lightsaber should have, corrupted her, because Exar Kun did that with like every single thing he owned, but she didn't. Of course, it enhanced Shantique because she's full of rage and anger. We also learn in this series that Demigol had the Force. And this whole time he's been looking for the people, the children that he experimented on and stuff, because they were supposed to have the Force, but most of them probably didn't. It was him unknowingly using the Force. And in the end, Demigol tries to pick up, there's 2 lightsabers on the ground. He picks them both up. And he says he has a 50-50 chance of it being, the one-sided one, but ends up being Exar Kun's, and it stabs through him, stabs through Chantique, and ends that storyline. And Zane says, not with me, though. There was no 50-50 chance, or something like that. It's really interesting. And lastly, gosh, I'm a sucker. We get to the very end, happily ever after. Jeriel / Odessa gets to see her parents again. Zane's going to go off on his own, but Griff says not yet. And he has a date with Jeriel. And Zane kisses Jeriel, and it's just a nice and happy ending. And of course, the final words of that issue is, Griff, as always, the mastermind. And that's the ending of the Kotor comics. Of course, we still have a Kotor War, which I imagine takes place. I mean, there's already a war going on with the Mandalorians, but I imagine that focuses more on that. And that's kind of the bigger story going on in the Star Wars Expanded Universe right now. But as for Zane's kind of small-term story, it's kind of over. I'm curious to see what we have with those last 5 issues. I'm also really sad because it's the last 5 times I'll get to see Zane. But I hope you all join me for that. Next time we have the Kotor 5-issue comic War, and we also have 2 short stories from Lost Tribe of the Sith, and then we move on to the Kotor video game. But I hope you all join me for that. This series has been a great ride. I've had such fun. Not only if you're a fan of the video game should you read this because it has connections to the game, but it also creates just phenomenal characters on its own. John Jackson Miller's done a phenomenal job with this series, and created wonderful characters that, I'm probably never going to forget. Griff is honestly probably one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars Expanded Universe so far. He's so fun, and he acts like he doesn't care, like it's all about the money, but that's not true. And it's the same thing we love about Han Solo and stuff, but for different reasons, because Han Solo is like the cool guy, the SWAT, he's a cool guy, he'll shoot you down no problem because Han shoots first. But Griff's a bit different, but he still has that kind of like essential, like I don't care, but I do. And I love that. And I love Zane, how he's not the greatest of the greatest, because that's what we have Revan for. Revan's like, the big, main character, big strong guy of the main series. Zane's not like that, and I like that. And I liked his whole story. I like that we got, the whole intrigue from the very beginning with the Padawans being dead. Like, if that doesn't make you want to read more, I don't know what would. And everything progressing from that, just whole way through, not a single moment where I was bored or not enjoying myself. A series well worth your time, well worth your money, and was a joy. So I look forward to when I see you guys next time. Until then, may the force be with you. Have a great day or night, whenever this is. Bye.